Hi sewing friends, welcome to my sewing room. My name is Beth, and if you are new, welcome. It's always nice to sew with you. Today I am making another Christmas ornament. Let's get started. Here are the little ornaments I've been making, these little bells with some old buttons and some sequins I happen to have. So I did not purchase anything to make these. I was trying to use what I had on hand, and I had these beautiful little cloth napkins that I thought would work really well with my ornaments. And then later I'll show you another ornament using just some fabric that I also have on hand. So this is for the backing. So I needed a print, and I have that thin cotton for the back. And I'm also using some fusible interfacing for my little ornaments. Here's the little bell shape that I cut out of paper. I just folded some notebook paper, and it measures 3 inches on the bottom. There's a 1/2 inch on the little edge of the bell, and they are about 2.5 inches tall. So I wanted to give you those dimensions, and it was fun to dig through all of my old buttons and little doodads to add to my bell ornaments. The first thing I did was I took my pattern that I had cut out, and I drew that on the smooth side of my interfacing. The bumpy side is the sticky side, so I want my bell to be on that smooth side, and I just drew around the pattern, and then I will be attaching this to the back of my fabric. And I wanted to show you that here's the bell folded. That's how I constructed it. Just folded the paper and cut a bell. Just go back to kindergarten, and that's kind of how I do some of my patterns sometimes, just imagining kindergarten. And I used that inside of the paper to kind of figure out where I was going to cut out my bell. So that was kind of nice to have that opening there, so I could kind of see where it would look nice on this fabric I have. And then here I'm just showing you how I just eyeballed it and cut that pattern out. Here's another pattern, probably slightly different, but the same idea. Just showing you how easy it is to cut out this pattern on your own. Place the interfacing on the back of my cloth napkin, and this interfacing says to use steam. So I used some fabric, and I sprayed that top piece of fabric to get a little steam in there, moisture, and that attached it to the fabric on the back. And I am adding more of the interfacing because I will be cutting out more ornaments. Here I am kind of figuring out where the other ornaments will fit onto my napkin. After the interfacing was attached, I cut out my ornament, leaving excess there for the seam. I added just a few sequins to this little bell, just trying to avoid that seam. So I can't put these sequins too close to the edge, otherwise it will end up into the seam and that'll be in the way. So I am going to put maybe 5 or 6 of these little gold sequins onto my bell shape ornament. Now that I have the sequins attached, I can add the backing, and I'm showing you this unfinished backing here, and here's one that I finished. I wanted my seam to be in the center of the back, not along the edge, so that it's just not as obvious. So I have this cotton fabric here. It's an old piece of fabric. It's very thin, and I'm going to be cutting 2 pieces together from this cotton fabric for the back of my ornament. You can see I'm just roughly cutting a piece of fabric quite a bit bigger than my ornament. I do want some wiggle room because I am going to be doing something just a little bit different here. I have 2 pieces and I'm going to eyeball the center, find sort of the center. It does not need to be exact. I drew a line from the top to bottom, but I'm going to sew only for that about 1 inch on the top and 1 inch on the bottom, and I will also backstitch when I stop there in the center. So I'm going to stop, backstitch, and then I'll add a little seam at the bottom as well. Took it to my ironing board and I folded the pieces out like this, so I have that little opening so that when I sew this to my ornament I can turn it easily right side out. So I'm going to put these 2 together, and I will also insert the tie or the hanger for this little ornament. I'll put a knot and then I'll stick it right inside on the top there, and I'm going to sew all around this ornament following that pencil line. After sewing all around the bell ornament, I took a pair of scissors, went around and trimmed away the excess, and I really focused on the sides of those bells there at the bottom. That is kind of a tricky part to open up because there's a lot of fabric in there. So I tried to trim away as much as I could, and then I did some snipping of those seams where the bell curves. So I tried to get as much of the fabric snipped away as possible. This bell is looking really cute. It needs a couple more items before I close up the back of the bell. I'm going to add something along the bottom there, And I do have some bells. I didn't know if I would have enough, so I also tried adding buttons to the bottom there, which I think also looks nice. And then I'm going to be adding a button to the top of the bell. I have quite a few buttons already in my sewing room, but Frances, one of my sewing room friends here on YouTube, sent me some more buttons just providentially this week, so I was able to also look through the buttons she sent me. I don't need very many for this project, but it is fun to sort through and find just the perfect button for each of these little bells. So I'll be attaching either buttons or bells, and maybe both, to all of my little ornaments, and then I'll put a button also on the top. You may not be able to find a vintage napkin for your bell that has this pretty red and green, so I went to my stash and found another fabric that I wondered if it would, how this would work. It's got a white background and a green print, and I'm using the same method to make an ornament, and this time I'll be adding some red beads along with those gold sequins to give it some interest. And I did need to be careful. These red beads need to be away from that seam at least a 1/4 inch, because when you put the ornament together on your machine with that seam, you don't want to run into a bead in the seam there. So I happen to have these little red beads, and I added them here and there along the bottom, and then the sequins, and I think it turned out really sweet. This project was a lot of fun, and I'm going to keep making these little bells and giving them away to friends and family. Thank you for joining me today, and I'll see you next time.